G'day everyone. This is the first in a series of occasional pieces about the power of human tenderness and how it ripples out. The article this video comes from is called When Decency Changes Everything. Let me ask you something. When you look back on the moments that really stayed with you, the ones that shifted you or steadied you, how many of them were big public events, and how many were just one person quietly deciding to be decent? We live in a world that's very loud about outrage and very quiet about kindness. Scroll your news feed and it's crisis, conflict, scandal, repeat. It can start to feel like people are mostly awful and that nothing small really matters. But when you zoom in on actual lives, the pattern looks different. Again and again, you find tiny, stubborn acts of decency that change the shape of someone's story. Take the little girl whose only pair of shoes finally wore through. Her parents couldn't afford new ones, they were ashamed, so they kept her home from school. On paper, she became another absent child. Her teacher could have shrugged and moved on. Instead, she picked up the phone, listened to a hard truth, and simply said, "Have her ready tomorrow, I'll come get her." The next morning, there was a detour via a shoe shop, one pair of shoes, one lift to school. Not a grand gesture, but to that kid, the message was deafening. You belong here, you're worth the trouble. Years later, that same teacher quietly handed over her entire library of books, feeding a love of reading that's still shaping that young woman's life. A few dollars, a car ride, and a box of paperbacks turned into a lifetime relationship with learning. That's what the ripples of decency can look like. Or think about a COVID ward on the other side of the world. A man lies in hospital for 40 days. His wife rings every day but can't visit. Nurses could stick to charts, meds, the next patient. Instead, one of them sits with him and scrolls through family photos, listening to the stories behind each face. Another washes and prepares him so he can attend his daughter's wedding via Zoom, treating him as a dad first and a patient second. Palliative care doctors became the family's eyes and ears. When the end comes, a nurse and a junior doctor stop everything else to sit with the wife while she says goodbye. You'd think the story ends there, but it doesn't. At the funeral, only 10 people are allowed inside. So his co-workers, delivery drivers, park their trucks outside in the Arizona heat and listen to the service over speakers. The next day, which happens to be Father's Day, they turn up again in work clothes to mow lawns and do the heavy jobs he would have done. None of them can bring him back, but together they're saying he mattered, you matter, you're not alone. Kindness shows up in quiet, everyday places too. There's the bloke in the ute at the drive-through who decides to pay for the car behind him. Nothing huge, a coffee and a couple of donuts with a simple message, "Have a nice day, pay it forward." He keeps doing it. Staff start calling him the Tacoma guy. One day he rolls up and finds someone has already paid for his meal, a woman who had once had her order covered by him. Another day, the car behind him is picking up breakfast for the entire sports team. The bill is much bigger than usual. He hesitates for a second, then pays it anyway. His reasoning is classic. If you're next in the batting order, you still take your swing. And then there are the harder stories. A woman escaping an abusive marriage ends up homeless and broke, trying to protect her child with no support. There's no single hero. Instead, a string of people offer what they can. A bit of work in a garden, a rental with work for rent, an old van in exchange for jobs around a property, someone willing to stand beside her in court. They don't rewrite policy, they just refuse to look away. Years later, she owns a home, runs a small business, and is the neighbour who turns up with food, money, lifts, and a spare bed. The ripples are now hers to pass on. What links all these stories isn't miracle-level sacrifice or flawless virtue. It's ordinary humans making choices, picking up the phone instead of looking away, staying in the room when things get uncomfortable, reaching for their wallet, lying silently beside someone whose heart is breaking, remembering a face from years ago and sending an email. Most of us will never lead a country or design a welfare system, but every day we walk into dozens of tiny moments where our behavior can tilt someone's life a fraction towards hope instead of despair. So here's the invitation. Next time you see one of those moments in the classroom, in the hospital corridor, in the coffee queue, in your own street, choose decency. Trust that the ripples will go further than you'll ever see. Well, thanks for being here. Please take a look at the extended article that's linked below. And if you'd like to talk about developing a more compassionate environment in your business, give me a call. I'd love to discuss how I can help. So, hope to see you back here soon. Cheers.